Good morning, everyone, and welcome to my class. My name is Kay, your English teacher for grade 9. Welcome and thank you for joining me. So on your screen, that's my name and surname, as well as my email address. If there's anything that you don't understand, anything you would like assistance on based on everything that we have done so far, please pop me an email and I will get back to you, okay? Awesome. So today, as I had said yesterday, we are doing poem analysis, okay? By the end of the lesson, you will learn the process of breaking a poem down into important elements, the use of figurative language, and the key features of a poem. Okay. So, poem analysis, what is it? I know you have done poetry from primary school as well as grade 8 last year. So whenever you hear your teacher saying that we are doing some poetry analysis or some poem analysis, what is it? What comes to mind? Okay. So poem analysis is the process of breaking the poem down into important elements and explaining how they work together to create an effect or meaning, okay? So it is a process of breaking the poem down into important elements and explaining how they work together to create an effect or meaning, okay? So what are those important elements? So the important elements, or you can call them the key features, are the form of the poem, the title, the figurative language, the mood and tone, the theme of the poem, as well as the speaker or the writer of the poem, okay? So those are the important elements or the key features of the poem that you work on when you are doing poem analysis, okay? Right, so let's start with the form, or what you call the genre of the poem. What is that? So this is the physical structure of the poem, such as the length of the lines, the rhythm, the rhyme, and repetition, okay? So for an example, we have a sonnet, we have a free verse, we have a rhythm, we have a rhyme scheme, okay? So we are able to identify a sonnet before we can even read the poem. We are able to identify it because we know that a sonnet has 14 lines, and that mostly ends with a pair of set of lines set apart. So we know that a sonnet will have 14 lines, and the other 2 lines towards the end will be together apart from the rest of the other lines, okay? So that is how we are able to identify a sonnet before we can even start reading, okay? And then we have a free verse. A free verse is a poem that is free from limitations and it does not rhyme with fixed forms, okay? So normally such poems are without a rhythm or a rhyme scheme, yet they still provide artistic expression, okay? So as much as they don't have a rhyme or a rhythm, but they always provide some form of artistic expression, okay? Right, so please bear in mind that these are the physical features of the poem. You haven't read the poem, you are still just looking at it, but based on just looking at it, you are still able to identify what type of poem it is, okay? And then we have a rhythm. So a rhythm is the pattern of language in a line of a poem, marked by the stressed and unstressed syllables in the words, okay? So poems that are not written in free verse have the rhythm or the beat, okay? So yeah, with this one, it's very different from the free verse. Remember, the free verse has no limitation. It doesn't have a fixed form. But with this one, the rhythm, it is marked by the stressed and unstressed syllables in the words. And unlike the free verse, it has a rhythm or a beat to it, okay? And then we finally have the rhyme scheme, which is the matching up of sounds and syllables, usually at the end of the lines of the poem. Okay. So with the rhyme scheme, the rhyming lines can be repeated throughout a poem to emphasize the author's message. Okay. So the rhyming lines can be repeated throughout the poem to emphasize the author's message. Okay. So all of these things, we are able to identify them without going in depth with the poem. You can just by browsing through and just by looking at the structure of the poem, you can be able to tell, okay, this is a sonnet, or this is a free verse, or this is a rhythm, or this is a rhyme scheme. So when you are talking about form, you are talking about the physical structure of the poem, such as the lines, the rhythm, the rhyme, and repetition. Okay. Awesome. And then we look at the title. So now that you know what type of poem it is, just by looking at it, you look at the title of the poem. The title of the poem is very important to take note of because it will give you a clue on what the poem is about, or even the message that the writer is trying to say or is trying to give out. Okay, so the title is very important because it can give you clues on what the poem is about. Okay, so you must always think about the title and how it relates to the poem, because there's always a message behind the title. Awesome. And then we have the figurative language, which is the one that you guys enjoy a lot. Okay, so what is the figurative language? When you talk about figuratively, what is it that you are talking about? Okay. Figurative language is the language that uses figures of speech. Okay, but then again, what are figures of speech? Okay. So figures of speech are words or phrases used in a non-literal sense or a vivid effect. Okay. So basically, the figurative language is the opposite of literal. So when you are using when you're using a figurative language, it doesn't necessarily mean that whatever it is that you're saying is just the way it is. We use the figurative language to exaggerate and also to give a vivid effect of whatever it is that is being said. Okay, right? So examples of the figurative language are similes. Okay, similes and metaphors and alliterations. They fall under figures of speech. The other thing that is not here that I didn't mention is idioms. Okay, idioms, they are also part of the figurative language. Okay, they are not necessarily part of figures of speech, but they are part of the figurative language. Okay, so for example, we have a simile here. A simile compares two things using the words like or as. Okay. Another example is he is as busy as a bee. Okay, so this person is being compared to a bee. Okay. Another example is this dress is perfect because it fits like a glove. Okay, so a simile is part of the figurative languages, or we can say simile is a part of the figures of speech, because it compares two things using the words like or is. For instance, with these two examples, on the other one, a person is being compared to a bee, and then on the second example, a dress is being compared to a glove. Okay, and then we have a metaphor. A metaphor are comparisons between two things, and unlike similes, they do not use the words like or as. An example would be, my kid's room is a disaster area. Okay, so the room is being compared to a disaster area. Another one is, Tando is a hungry wolf. He can eat a lot. So Tando is being compared to a wolf. Okay. There is more, but I do know that I think Mr. Mukhale, he did the figures of speech with you guys last week, but I am gonna emphasize on them again when we are doing the actual poem, okay? Yeah, I'll just emphasize on them again, but he did do them in detail. There is a grade 9 video from last week that is all about the figures of speech. Okay, so alliteration as well, personification, onomatopoeia, and hyperbole. There's actually quite a lot of figures of speech, but for English first additional language, these are the ones that are more common, and these are the ones that you will probably come across until matric. Okay, so don't worry about them. I'll go into detail a bit later on when we are doing the actual poem. Okay, so I hope that we're all clear on the figurative language, that it's the language that uses figures of speech, or language that uses idioms as well. Yeah, so the figures of speech are words or phrases used in a non-literal sense, okay, just to give you a clear picture of whatever it is that is being talked about. Okay, now we are going to talk about, we're going to talk about the mood and tone. Okay, the mood and tone. I hope you didn't skip anything. Okay, yeah. Point. The mood and tone. So a lot of people, they tend to think that the mood and tone is the same thing. When it comes to poetry, the mood and tone are two different things. Okay, so let's start with the tone. The tone of a poem is the writer's attitude towards the subject or the audience. Okay, so you can tell the tone of the poem through what the writer is saying, their views on whatever it is that they are talking about in the poem. Okay, but then again, the mood is how we are made to feel as readers, or the emotion evoked by the writer. So basically, the mood is all about you as the reader, how you are feeling at that moment, or even after reading the poem, the emotions that were evoked by the writer while you're reading the poem. While the tone is about the writer, their attitude towards the subject or audience, and you are able to pick this up based on their views, the type of words that they use to express themselves in the poem. Okay. Okay, and now we have the theme of the poem. So the theme of a poem relates to a universal truth, issue, or conflict. Okay. So to determine the theme, you must look over all your analysis and connect the dots. So you do this by asking yourself, what is the subject? Okay, like what is it that the poet is talking about? Who is the speaker? That is the writer of the poem. Okay. How do you feel about the subject that they are talking about, and what is the mood? Okay, and remember, we said the mood, it is how we are made to feel as readers, or the emotion evoked by the writer. Okay, so to determine the theme, you must look over all your analysis and connect the dots by asking yourself, what is it that is being talked about here? Who is the speaker? And sometimes the speaker is not always the writer, but we will speak about that a bit later. How do you feel about the subject? Okay, and what is the mood? Right. Okay. And we will still be able to answer all of these questions. We'll attempt to answer all of these questions with our poem that we are going to read, but I think we will go into more details on it tomorrow. Okay. And then we go to the speaker. Okay. Who is telling the poem? Okay. Who is the speaker addressing? Does the poem give any clues about the speaker's personality, the point of view, the age, or gender? Okay. A lot of poems they are able to give you answers to these questions. They can tell you the speaker's personality, their point of view, and sometimes the age and gender, but the age is just not so common. Okay. But yeah, with a lot of poems, you are able to tell who tells the poem, who is being addressed, and does the poem itself give any clues about the speaker's personality, their point of view, age, or gender. Okay, and you will probably be able to answer these questions with the poem that we are going to do. Okay, so the poem that we are going to do is called The Twins, okay, by Henry S. Lee. Okay, this is the link to the poem on Google, and this is the link to the audio on YouTube. So I suggest that you go ahead and have a look at this poem and listen to it, so that tomorrow when we get to analyze it, you might have concerns or questions or interesting things that you picked up that you would like us to discuss about the poem. Okay, right. Another thing is, when you are analyzing a poem, people have different ways of analyzing a poem. With myself, I was always taught back in high school to always use the 5 W's and H. Okay, that is your who, what, where, when, why, and how. And somehow they've always worked in terms of giving me the answers that I need when I'm analyzing a poem. So that's another option that I can give you guys when it comes to analyzing a poem. Yeah, this one is very easy to remember, and it still addresses the same things that I've just mentioned here. So you just have to remember that it's the 5 W's and H. 5 W's and H. So who will help you to address who is being spoke about in the poem, or who is the writer of the poem, and then what is the subject, what is being discussed in the poem, and then where is all of this taking place, when is it taking place, and why as well, also how. Okay, so yeah, you can use this as well, but I highly recommend the 5 W's and H for analyzing a short story or a novel, but other people, they use them as well for analyzing poetry. Okay, right. So let's have a look at the poem. Okay, in fact, before we have a look at the poem, let's first read a little bit about the poet. So the poem that we're going to read is called The Twins. It was written by Henry Lee. Henry was a minor English poet and playwright of the 19th century. He was known for his lyric writing and tuneful singing of humorous songs, and for a number of translations of French comic operas into English, many of which appeared to the London stage. Okay. His sense of humor was evident in some of his work, most notably a poem called The Twins, which is the one that we're going to do, which became a favorite of all children of all ages. Okay. He was born on the 29th of March, 1837 in London, and died on the 16th of June, 1883 at the age of 46. Okay. So that is just a brief background on who Henry Lee was. We already know that he was a poet from London overseas, and yeah, he wrote this popular poem. This is actually a very popular poem in English, and hopefully you will enjoy it. Okay, so let's have a look at the poem. Okay, I hope everyone can see. Okay, I'll scroll down as we read. Okay, so the title is called The Twins, and I will play you guys the audio from YouTube. Because it was written by a guy, so I found it very fitting that I use an audio of a guy that I got from YouTube, so that you guys can get to enjoy the poem fully and understand it. So I'm going to play it twice, okay? So I'm going to play it for the first time now, and just listen carefully.
Form and feature, face and limb, I grew so like my brother that folks got taking me for him and each for one another. It puzzled all our kith and kin. It reached an awful pitch, for one of us was born a twin. So you switch. One day, to make the matter worse, before our names were fixed, as we were being washed by nurse, we got completely mixed. And thus, you see, by fate's decree, or rather nurse's whim, my brother John got christened me, and I got christened him. This fatal likeness even dogged my footsteps when at school, and I was always getting flogged, for John turned out a fool. I put this question hopelessly to everyone I knew. What would you do if you were me? To prove that you were you. Our close resemblance turned the tide of my domestic life, for somehow my intended bride became my brother's wife. In short, year after year, the same absurd mistakes went on. And when I died, the neighbors came and buried Brother John.
Okay, I'm going to play for the second time.
Form and feature, face and limb, I grew so like my brother that folks got taking me for him and each for one another. It puzzled all our kith and kin. It reached an awful pitch, for one of us was born a twin. Yet not a soul knew which. One day, to make the matter worse, before our names were fixed, as we were being washed by nurse, we got completely mixed. And thus, you see, by fate's decree, or rather nurse's whim, my brother John got christened me, and I got christened him. This fatal likeness even dogged my footsteps in school, and I was always getting flogged, for John turned out a fool. I put this question hopelessly to everyone I knew. What would you do if you were me? To prove that you were you. Our close resemblance turned the tide of my domestic life, for somehow my intended bride became my brother's wife. In short, year after year, the same absurd mistakes went on. And when I died, the neighbors came and buried Brother John.
Okay, that is the end of our poem. Okay, poem. I really hope you guys are going to enjoy it. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint screen. Okay. All right. Okay, so now that we've read the poem, I don't want to bombard you guys with a whole lot. I know I said a lot and it's a lot to take in, but I want you to, as you're listening to the poem, to think about how you are going to answer or address the following key elements or features. Okay, so As you were looking at the poem, okay, let me just try and put the screen back on. Okay, just have a look at the poem. Then we spoke about, just by looking at it, I want you to let me know what type of poem it is. Okay. And also make note of the title, the figurative language that was used. There's actually quite a lot of it there. The mood and tone, the theme, as well as the speaker. Okay. So I want you to try and attempt doing those things on your own before we can get to do them together and more in detail. Okay. Okay, as I said, the title, it often provides important clues about the poem. So the title is called The Twins, and we read the poem twice. So just think about it, how it relates to the poem, okay? Okay, the figurative language, which we will get to that tomorrow. Okay, the mood as well as the tone, okay? So, yeah, you can already tell that this tone, this poem is about the twins, and it is, one of the twins is the one who is the speaker, just expressing themselves on how they felt about being a twin to their brother John. Okay, so you'll tell us about the tone of the poem, which is the writer's attitude towards the subject or the audience, and then how you are feeling as a reader or the emotion evoked by the writer. Okay. And then you will let me know about the theme of the poem and how you manage to get to the theme. Okay, so as much as it's very important to be able to identify the theme, but it's also important for you to be able to support your answer on how you got to decide that that is the actual theme of the poem. Okay, and remember I said to determine the theme, you have to look at the overall analysis, and that is what is the subject, who is the speaker, and how do they feel about the subject, and what is the mood. Okay, so you have to answer all of those questions prior to getting to the theme. So once you have answered all of the steps or questions, by the time you get here, you already know what the theme is. Okay. Right. And then who tells the poem? Who is the speaker addressing? And does the poem give any clues about the speaker's personality, their point of view, age, or gender? So there is actually a whole lot that you can get from this poem. And yeah, so I want you today, I want you today to just have a look at the poem, read it a couple of times until you understand it, and come back with some words that you don't understand or that you are not familiar with. So tomorrow we'll have a look at those things, the vocabulary, the title, before we get to the actual analysis of the poem, and that will be, you know, the theme, the figurative language, and how it has been used. Okay, so basically that's what poem analysis is about. It's just about you being able to break down the actual poem into important elements and explaining how they work together, or how they create an effect or even a meaning. Okay, so it's just you being able to break down the poem and explaining each part of the poem that you have managed to break down. The more you do it, the more you get used to it. So the more you get used to the habit of reading poetry and following these steps, you get comfortable and you become familiar with the figurative language and how it is being used, and the easier it becomes for you when you get to be in matric or other grades. Okay, so the more you get to do this, the better you become at it, right? So yeah, I think that just sums up my lesson for today. Tomorrow we are doing part 2 of this. So today I just wanted to give you the tools of how you can analyze a poem, and I've given you the poem and where you can find it, so that tomorrow when I am going into details and teaching the poem, you are learning something that you are familiar with, something that you have read, and you perhaps have some questions or things that you would like us to discuss regarding the poem. Okay, right. So thank you so much for your time. Looking forward to tomorrow for us to analyze this poem together, and looking forward to your answers and how you find poem analysis to be. And yeah, thank you so much for joining me. I will see you guys tomorrow.